The quantum drive hummed softly as I stared through the viewport of our flagship, watching the endless sea of stars stretch before us. 10 years ago, we were just another species trying to make our mark in the galaxy. That was before they came, before they showed us what true cruelty looked like. I still remember that day like it was yesterday. Our first contact with the Zaraxian Empire should have been a moment of celebration, a milestone in human history. Instead, it became the day humanity learned that some wounds never heal, and some actions can never be forgiven. Admiral Chen, my second-in-command's voice pulled me from my thoughts. We're receiving the final confirmation from Earth Command. All battle groups are in position. I nodded, my fingers tracing the worn fabric of the small blue ribbon pinned to my uniform. Sarah would have turned 16 today. My daughter, who used to dream about touching the stars, who begged me to tell her stories about space exploration every night before bed. The Zaraxians didn't see her as a child. To them, she was just another test subject, another way to study human physiology. When their scientists decided to conduct their compatibility trials on the children of New Eden Colony, they claimed it was for the greater good of both species. They called it necessary research. We called it what it was: murder. The security footage from that day haunts every human who's seen it. 312 children. Not one survived their experiments. The Zaraxians sent us their bodies with clinical reports attached, as if they'd done us a favor. They genuinely couldn't understand why we were upset. In their culture, the strong prosper and the weak serve their purpose. Launch operations ready, Admiral, Lieutenant River reported, her voice steady despite the weight of what we were about to do. The fleet is awaiting your command. Around me, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, but I could feel the anticipation in the air. Every person on this ship had lost someone in what we now called the Children's Dawn Massacre. Humanity had spent the last decade preparing for this moment. While the Zaraxians dismissed us as primitive and emotional, we built our strength in silence. We studied their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. We united as a species in a way we never had before. Old enemies became allies, borders became meaningless, and every resource we had went into developing weapons and ships that could match their superior technology. They thought we would break. Instead, we forged ourselves into something stronger. The Zaraxian Empire had ruled this sector of space for 10,000 years, but they had never faced anything like humanity's scorn. They didn't understand that humans are at their most dangerous when protecting their young. Send the signal to all ships, I ordered, standing from my command chair. Operation Remembrance begins now. Across the fleet, thousands of human warriors prepared for battle. We weren't just fighting for vengeance. We were fighting to ensure no species would ever dare harm a human child again. The massive form of the Zaraxian homeworld loomed ahead, its orbital defenses glittering like deadly stars. They thought their world was impregnable, protected by technologies we couldn't hope to match. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't our ships or our guns. It was our ability to achieve the impossible when pushed too far. As our fleet moved into attack position, I touched the blue ribbon one last time. "This is for you, Sarah," I whispered. "For all of them." Then I gave the order that would change the galaxy forever, and humanity showed the Zaraxian Empire exactly what hell looked like. The first wave of our assault struck like lightning across their orbital defense grid. Decades of studying Zaraxian shield harmonics had taught us their greatest weakness. They'd never adapted their technology because they'd never needed to. Pride makes for poor armor, as my father used to say. Multiple direct hits on primary defense stations. Rivera reported, her hands dancing across the tactical display. Their shields are failing exactly as predicted. Around us, the bridge crew maintained their focus, each person knowing their role in this carefully orchestrated dance of destruction. We trained for this moment countless times, but simulation could never capture the raw intensity of actual combat. The Zaraxian response was predictable, exactly as our intelligence suggested it would be. Their capital ships moved to protect their orbital platforms, following battle doctrines unchanged for millennia. They didn't realize that every move they made had been anticipated, war-gamed thousands of times by our strategic AIs and veteran commanders. Second wave, commence attack pattern Delta, I ordered, watching as our smaller, more agile ships darted between their lumbering dreadnoughts. The Ziraxians had always dismissed human ship design as crude and inefficient. They never understood that we built our vessels not to match their technology, but to exploit its flaws. Through the viewport, I watched our fighters weave through their defensive fire with almost supernatural precision. Each pilot had undergone neural synchronization training, allowing them to react faster than any Ziraxian crew could track. It was beautiful and terrible to witness, like watching a school of predatory fish strip a larger creature to the bone. "Sir," my tactical officer called out, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the surface. They're powering up their planetary defense grid." A ghost of a smile crossed my face. Right on schedule. The Ziraxians were so predictable in their arrogance that they'd never considered we might want them to activate those defenses. I thought back to the classified briefings, the years of careful planning that led to this moment. After the Children's Dawn massacre, every nation on Earth had contributed their best scientists to a single project. While the Ziraxians watched us build warships and missiles, our real weapon was something far more subtle. "Launch the resonance probes," I commanded. Across our fleet, thousands of small, seemingly harmless devices deployed, each broadcasting a specific frequency. Alone, they were nothing. Together, they formed a web of energy that would turn the Ziraxians' own defensive grid against them. The memory of reading Sarah's autopsy report flashed through my mind. The clinical way they described their experiments on her and the other children still made my blood boil. But revenge wasn't our primary goal today. This was about ensuring humanity's survival in a galaxy that had proven far more hostile than we'd ever imagined. "Enemy fleet is moving to intercept," Rivera announced. "They're following standard combat doctrine." Of course they were. The Ziraxians couldn't conceive of changing tactics that had served them for thousands of years. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest strength was our ability to adapt, to learn from every defeat, and come back stronger. The ship shuddered as enemy fire impacted our shields. Our technology might be newer, but theirs was still powerful. This wouldn't be an easy victory. But then, nothing worth doing ever was. I watched as our fleet executed a complex series of maneuvers, drawing the Ziraxian ships into exactly the position we needed them. "All ships, maintain formation," I ordered, my voice steady despite the stakes. "Commence final countdown for Operation Remembrance, Phase 2. Around me, the bridge crew worked with grim determination. They all knew what was coming, and what it would cost. But they also knew the price of failure. As the battle raged around us, I couldn't help but think of all the parents across human space watching this broadcast, waiting to learn if their children's killers would finally face justice. The Ziraxians were about to learn that humanity's resolve wasn't just about vengeance. It was about ensuring a future where our children could reach for the stars without fear. The resonance probes activated in perfect synchronization, their energy waves rippling across space like invisible threads. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Ziraxian ships continued their assault, their energy weapons blazing across the void. But we knew what was coming. We tested this technology in secret for years, perfecting it for this exact moment. Energy readings from the planetary defense grid are becoming unstable. River reported, her voice tight with anticipation. On the tactical display, we could see the massive defense platforms starting to pulse with unusual patterns of light. The Ziraxians hadn't noticed yet. They were too focused on our fleet to see what was happening to their own systems. A sudden burst of communication chatter erupted from the enemy fleet. They'd finally realized something was wrong, but it was already too late. The resonance probes had infiltrated their defense network, creating a cascade of feedback loops that would turn their own technology against them. Not to destroy, we weren't them. Our goal wasn't extinction, but submission. "Sir, enemy ships are attempting to disengage from the defense grid," my tactical officer called out. "They're starting to realize what's happening." Of course they were. The Ziraxians might be arrogant, but they weren't stupid. Unfortunately for them, disconnecting from their defense network wasn't as simple as flipping a switch. I watched as their mighty dreadnoughts began to struggle, their movements becoming erratic as our probes affected their systems. This was the moment we waited for, the culmination of a decade of sacrifice and preparation. But even now, I felt no joy, only a grim satisfaction that justice was finally at hand. "Launch the second wave of probes," I ordered. This time, the devices we released were different. While the first wave had disrupted their defense grid, these would deliver our message, our terms. Each probe carried detailed evidence of their crimes, not just against humanity, but against dozens of other species we discovered during our investigations. The ship rocked as a desperate Zyraxian cruiser made a suicide run at our position. Our gunners responded with practiced precision, disabling its engines without destroying the vessel. We learned from their cruelty. We wouldn't become monsters to defeat monsters. "Admiral," Rivera's voice cut through the chaos of battle. "We're detecting multiple energy surges from the surface. Their main power grid is destabilizing exactly as predicted." The tactical display showed spreading waves of disruption across the Zyraxian homeworld as their own defense systems turned into a planet-wide paralysis field. I touched Sarah's ribbon again, remembering her last message to me before she left for the colony. "Dad, I'm going to see the stars up close," she'd said, her eyes shining with excitement. The Zyraxians had taken that dream from her, turned it into a nightmare. But today, we would ensure her death meant something. "All ships, move into final position," I commanded. Around us, the human fleet formed a perfect sphere around the Zyraxian homeworld, a display of coordination that would have been impossible just a decade ago. We learned, we'd evolved. We'd become something new in response to their cruelty. The bridge fell silent as we watched the energy readings from the planet spike higher and higher. Everything was proceeding according to plan, but the next few moments would determine whether humanity's gamble would pay off, whether the deaths of our children would be avenged not through destruction, but through fundamental change. "Admiral," Rivera whispered, "it's time." I nodded, knowing that what happened next would either break the Zyraxian Empire forever or unite them against us in a way that could lead to the extinction of both our species. But we had no choice. Sometimes, the only way to prevent future atrocities is to force your enemy to confront their own barbarism. As I opened the channel to broadcast our message to every Zyraxian communication device on the planet, I thought of Sarah one last time. "Let's show them what humanity really is," I said, and gave the order that would change everything. The message began broadcasting across every frequency, every screen, every neural interface on the Zyraxian homeworld. But before the first images could even begin playing, our sensors detected something impossible. Deep beneath the planet's surface, energy readings were spiking in patterns we'd never seen before. "Unknown energy signature detected," Rivera announced, her voice tight with concern. It's not matching any known Zyraxian technology." The tactical display lit up with warnings as massive power surges began erupting from locations that weren't on any of our intelligence maps. Something was very wrong. That's when we received the transmission. It wasn't from the Zyraxian High Command or any of their military channels. Instead, it came from somewhere deep within their restricted research facilities. The holographic projection that appeared on our bridge showed a sight that made my blood run cold, a human face. "Admiral Chen," the woman said, her expression a mask of calm that didn't reach her eyes. I wish we were meeting under different circumstances. Behind her, I could see Zyraxian architecture, but something about it seemed wrong, altered in subtle ways that set my nerves on edge. "Who are you?" I demanded, though a terrible suspicion was already forming in my mind. The woman's features seemed oddly familiar, triggering memories I tried to bury. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, but there was something about her eyes. They were the same shade of blue as Sarah's. "The Zyraxians didn't just experiment on us, Father," she said softly. "They changed us, remade us, and now we're neither human nor Zyraxian, but something else entirely." My heart stopped. It couldn't be. I'd seen Sarah's body. I buried her. But as I looked at the woman's face, I saw echoes of my daughter, of what she might have become. "Admiral," Rivera interrupted, her voice shaking, "we're detecting similar energy signatures from all their major research facilities. Life signs, hundreds of them. They're reading as both human and Zyraxian. Around me, the bridge crew watched in horror as more data poured in, revealing the true scope of what the Zyraxians had done. The woman, I couldn't bring myself to think of her as Sarah, continued speaking. Their experiments succeeded, Father, just not in the way they expected. We gained abilities they couldn't control, understanding they couldn't comprehend. And now we're giving you a choice, just as you're giving them one. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as massive energy distortions began forming around the planet. Our carefully laid plans, our decade of preparation, all of it was being countered by technology that shouldn't exist. Technology that had been developed by hybrid beings who were once our children. Stand down your fleet, she said, or we'll be forced to demonstrate exactly what the Zyraxians created when they tried to improve humanity. We won't let you destroy them, not because they deserve mercy, but because their knowledge is still needed. Her eyes met mine through the hologram, and for a moment I saw a flash of the little girl who used to sit on my lap and dream of the stars. The tactical display showed our resonance probes beginning to fail, their carefully tuned frequencies being canceled out by something we couldn't even detect. Our advantage was evaporating, but that wasn't what froze me in place. It was the revelation that the Zyraxians hadn't just killed our children. They transformed them into something beyond our understanding. You have 5 minutes to decide, Father, the woman said, her voice carrying echoes of both threat and plea. Will humanity show us the same fear and hatred the Zyraxians showed them? Or are you ready to learn that revenge isn't the only path forward? The hologram flickered, and I found myself facing the most impossible choice of my life. Around me, the bridge crew waited in stunned silence, the weight of this revelation crushing our certainty like a collapsing star. Everything we thought we knew, everything we planned for, had just been turned upside down. And somewhere on that planet below, the children we'd thought we lost were waiting to see what their parents would become. Time seemed to freeze on the bridge as I stared at the space where her hologram had been. My fingers found Sarah's ribbon again, but now it felt different. No longer a memorial, but a connection to something I couldn't understand. The tactical display continued to show our systems failing, our carefully laid plans unraveling in the face of impossible technology. Admiral, Rivera said softly, we're receiving data transmissions from the surface. It's documentation of everything they did, everything that happened after. She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. On my screen, I could see the files pouring in, detailed records of how our children had not just survived but evolved. Sir, my tactical officer called out, the Zyraxian fleet is standing down. Their weapons are powering down, and their shields. He paused, checking his readings. Their shields are reconfiguring to a frequency we can detect. I think they're trying to show us they're not a threat. That's when the second transmission came through. This time, it was from the Zyraxian High Command, but something was different. The Imperial leader who appeared on screen looked shaken, almost afraid. Behind him, I could see other transformed humans, our children, standing in positions of authority. They hadn't just survived. They'd taken control. The ones you call the changed, the Zyraxian leader said, his translator struggling to convey his emotion. They have shown us truth we could not face. We offer unconditional surrender, not to your fleet, but to them. They understand both worlds now. They can bridge what we destroyed. I looked at my crew, seeing the same confusion and hope warring on their faces that I felt in my heart. We come here for revenge, but found something far more complex. Our children hadn't just survived. They transcended the conflict itself. The woman appeared again, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood dozens of others, all showing the same subtle changes, all carrying themselves with an authority that seemed almost supernatural. The Zyraxians tried to improve humanity through force, she said. Instead, they gave us the ability to understand both species completely. We can end this cycle of violence, if you let us. How can we trust this? I asked, my voice hoarse with emotion. After everything they did, because we remember who we were, she answered. We remember our families, our homes. We're still human, Father, just more than we were before, and we'd spent years preparing for this moment. ensuring neither humanity nor the Ziraxians could destroy each other. That's when our sensors detected something that defied explanation. Across the planet's surface, massive structures began rising from hidden underground facilities, technology that combined both human ingenuity and Ziraxian power in ways we'd never imagined possible. "This is what they created," she said, gesturing to the rising structures. "Not weapons, but bridges. We can join the species, Father. We can create something new, something better than revenge." She paused, then smiled in a way that brought tears to my eyes. Something worthy of the dreams we had when we were still just children looking at the stars. I touched the ribbon one last time, then slowly unpinned it from my uniform. "Stand down all weapons," I ordered. "All ships, power down offensive systems." Around me, the bridge crew complied, many wiping tears from their eyes as they realized what this meant. The woman, my daughter, somehow still my daughter, nodded in approval. "Welcome to the future, Father," she said. "It's not the one any of us expected, but it's the one we built from their mistake. The Ziraxians tried to understand humanity through science. Instead, they gave us the power to teach them about love." As our fleet stood down, the structures on the surface began pulsing with light, sending waves of energy into space that somehow felt both familiar and alien. We'd come seeking vengeance but found transformation instead. And somewhere in the stars above us, I knew humanity's journey was only beginning. The Ziraxian Empire hadn't just changed our children. They'd given birth to the next step in both our species' evolution. And as I watched the impossible structures rise from their world, I realized that sometimes the greatest victories come not from destroying your enemies, but from becoming something they never could have imagined. 5 years have passed since that day above the Ziraxian homeworld. I'm standing in the grand chamber of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching ships from both civilizations dock side by side. The massive space station, built with hybrid technology, serves as a symbol of what we've become, not conquerors or victims, but partners in something unprecedented. Sarah, I can call her that now without pain, stands beside me, explaining the latest developments in human-Ziraxian integration. The changes in her are still striking, but I've learned to see past them to the daughter I thought I'd lost. She's leading the diplomatic corps now, helping both species understand each other in ways we never could before. The first generation of voluntary transformations is going well. She tells me, her eyes showing that familiar sparkle of excitement I remember from her childhood. Both humans and Ziraxians are choosing to undergo the process. It's different now, controlled, consensual, and safe. She pauses, touching my arm. Some of the original parents are even choosing to join their children. Through the station's viewport, I can see Earth glowing like a blue jewel in the distance. The Ziraxian ships in orbit no longer bring fear to our people. Instead, they carry scientists, diplomats, and families eager to learn from each other. The transformed humans, we call them bridges now, have kept their promise to unite our species. Rivera, now a general, joins us at the window. She's one of many who chose to undergo the transformation process, hoping to better understand both worlds. The last of the hardline Imperial faction surrendered yesterday, she reports. The old guard is finally accepting that change is inevitable. Her features may be altered, but her dedicated spirit remains unchanged. The station's promenade below us is filled with humans, Ziraxians, and bridges, all mingling together. Children from both species play games together, their laughter echoing through the chamber. It's a sight that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Where there was once hate, there is now curiosity. Where there was fear, there is now hope. "Dad," Sarah says, using the word that still makes my heart skip a beat, the new educational exchange program starts next month. We'll be teaching young Ziraxians about human emotions, while their mentors help our people understand their technological insights. Would you consider being one of the instructors? I look at her, seeing both who she was and who she's become. The tragedy that nearly drove our species to mutual destruction has instead birthed something remarkable. The Ziraxians' attempt to improve humanity through force had failed, but their actions had inadvertently created a bridge between our worlds. The Stellar Council is meeting next week, Rivera adds. They're voting on expanding the transformation centers to other species who want to join the Unity project. We're not just changing two species anymore. We're changing the galaxy. Her voice carries the weight of someone who has seen both sides of this incredible journey. As I stand there with my daughter and my former officer, watching the future unfold before us, I finally understand the true meaning of evolution. It's not just about survival or power. It's about growth, about becoming something more than what we were. The Zeraxians had tried to force that evolution through cruel experiments, but in doing so, they had given birth to their own redemption. I reach into my pocket and touch Sarah's old blue ribbon, which I still carry as a reminder, not of what we lost now, but of what we gained, a future where our children's dreams of touching the stars became something far more profound than we could have imagined. Yes, I tell Sarah, watching a group of young Bridges leading a cultural exchange session below. I think it's time I helped teach others what you've taught me, that the greatest victories don't come from destroying our enemies, but from transforming our understanding of what's possible. As the stars shine through the station's vast windows, I realize that our story was never about revenge. It was about the incredible capacity for change that lies within all sentient beings. The Zeraxians had tried to improve humanity by force, but in the end, humanity had improved them through understanding. And somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of space, more worlds are waiting to join us in this grand experiment of unity.